Hello, AP students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have the remaining part of our notes over Chapter 5, States of Consciousness, primarily talking about altered states and the use of drugs. And so in your packet, we're looking at probably the last page or so here, and we're going to talk a little bit about stimulant use. And stimulants, for the most part, are any kind of drug that speeds up the central nervous system, speeding up mental and physical responses. Stimulates can increase concentration and reduce hyperactive behavior seen in individuals with ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. Stimulants in narcoleptic patients can help reduce sleep attacks. The impact or effects of stimulants, for some individuals, it can increase pleasurable sensations, it can increase self-confidence, greater energy and alertness, and in some cases can produce a state of euphoria. Cocaine packs what would be the most powerful rewarding punch of any illegal drug. Crack is kind of derived from cocaine. It is a purified form of that. It produces swift and pleasurable highs that can wear off very quickly. Amphetamines, or AKA speed, or if you go back into the 1960s, amphetamines were used in what was called diet pills, are basically related to this family of stimulants. They have effects that are very comparable to cocaine. In the more recent times, we can talk about methamphetamines, which came into wide use in the 90s, MDMA, aka ecstasy, which is another type of stimulant. Not only does it create feelings of euphoria, but it can energize an individual for hours, leading to things like dehydration, convulsions, and impaired memory. Ecstasy, just so you know, there was a time that it was kind of known as a rave drug. It was a drug that was used by a lot of young people that, if they would go to these rave dances, would allow them to dance for hours. What they found is that when these individuals are on this drug, even though they may be trying to hydrate themselves, they need an excessive amount of hydration to keep from becoming dehydrated. And unfortunately, that can either lead to some kind of weird experiences, meaning that a person could become very dehydrated or extremely hydrated and still causing some physical problems. People who are addicted to amphetamines or cocaines may experience hallucinations and perhaps maybe paranoid delusion symptoms associated with some severe mental disorders. So if you're thinking along the lines of like paranoid schizophrenia, this would be kind of along that line. Secondhand impacts for children who are exposed to cocaine, especially in utero via the mother's blood. Studies show that such children are at an increased risk for developing cognitive problems, emotional difficulties, and behavior disorders. All right, to include some other stimulants here, we want to talk about caffeine. Roughly 2 cups of coffee or tea can deliver enough cocaine to have a measurable impact on the heart, blood circulation in the brain. It's probably one of the most widely used stimulants because it is, for the most part in a lot of products like your soft drinks and coffees and such. Nicotine, which is typically inhaled in the form of tobacco smoke, or if you're talking about vaping, can have similar impacts as far as cocaine, or not cocaine, but caffeine. Nicotine and caffeine can tease the brain's reward pathway into responding to nicotine and caffeine as they were beneficial to us. Nicotine is pretty dangerous for a couple of reasons. One being the fact that it is highly addictive, and that's one of the reasons why we have individuals who have had problems with smoking habits, and it's really kind of a hard habit to kick. Along with that, you could get into talking about the risk, as far as inhaling or, if you're talking about the form of chewing, certain forms of tobacco, the increase for cancer, and primarily cancers of the throat, the lungs, and such. Emphysema, which is a breathing disorder, is also, basically an individual who is smoking is at a higher risk for that, and heart disease. The American Medical Association, for the most part, has formally recommended that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration regard nicotine as a drug to be regulated. And as far as habits are concerned, because nicotine is illegal and it is something that is actively promoted through the use of advertisements and such, it's a billion-dollar industry. $2.7 billion for the most part is going into this. All right, to wrap up, we're going to talk a little bit about dependency and addiction. Many psychoactive drugs have a weaker conscious altering effect with continual use, and as a result, the user will need larger and larger doses to achieve the same effect. So an individual who might be using, for example, cocaine, or perhaps maybe even other drugs like heroin, they might start off with smaller doses and produce certain highs, but over time they're going to need more of that drug. Tolerance, this is the reduced effectiveness of repeated use of a drug. So as an individual is using more and more of it, or using the drug for a sustained period of time, as far as more and more, they're going to need larger doses of the drug to produce that high. Physical dependency, this is when your body adjusts and in a sense comes to need the drug as a part of production of neurotransmitters. Physical dependency goes hand in hand with tolerance. So as an individual is kind of getting used to the dosage of the drugs that they're taking, and the fact that a smaller dose isn't producing the same effects as previously, they're going to need more of that drug, and your body adjusts to that. And at some point in time, when you talk about the production of neurotransmitters, the body may not naturally be producing as many on their own when a person is using certain drugs, and hence it kind of gets the biochemistry of the body off. All right, addiction is a condition in which a person continues to use a drug despite of its adverse effects, despite repeated uses to try to get off of the drug. This can be based on both physical and also the psychological dependency. Withdrawal, this is a pattern of uncomfortable and painful physical symptoms, such as cravings, experienced by a user when a level of drugs is decreased or the drug is eliminated. Individuals who go through like alcohol detox, or if they go through a detox for like opioids, their bodies may physically go into a state of pain or convulsions, and it's a very difficult physical undertaking that these individuals have to go through. Sometimes it seems like weaning them off the drugs might be a little more humane, but to get off the drugs itself, you do have to go through that withdrawal process, and it's not always a pleasant situation. Okay. Along with that, when you talk about the physical experiences of withdrawal, you might have physical trembling, perspiring, nausea, increased sensitivity to pain, and perhaps in some rare cases even death. Along with physical dependency, we also have to talk a little bit about the psychological dependency. Going back just a moment ago, the physical dependency is when your body comes to need that drug. But a psychological dependency is a little different. Your body doesn't need it, but you kind of enjoy the experience of it as far as hanging out perhaps with individuals who are using the drug. So an example would be individuals who might be smokers. Their body comes to physically need maybe the nicotine, and that might be a part of the physical dependency. But when an individual might be smoking, they might be going out behind maybe a building or to a designated area for smoking. and they might enjoy the company of the people who are out there smoking with them. And that kind of becomes more the psychological dependency. Or an individual who has been using illicit drugs and they enjoy the thrill of seeing their drug dealer and, being with them and going out and attaining the drug. Not necessarily so much using the drug. All right, thank you very much.